Welcome to your Week 6 lecture on business document translation for Honyaku Seminar class. This shouldn't be a long lecture, but hopefully it's enough information to get you started on your homework. So as you can see, this week's topic is business document translation. As we talked about before, there is a decision we need to make about how direct or free our approach should be when we're translating business documents. The short answer to this question is it depends on what kind of business document we're talking about. Business documents include a wide range of documents. They can be more creative documents, such as press releases or some kind of creative business catch copy, or they can be a lot more serious documents, such as an official report, a shareholder's report, or a contract, for example. So a contract is an example of something that we would lean more towards a direct translation and emphasis on the source text. In the case of the contract, it doesn't have anything to do with respecting the source culture necessarily, but rather the source text itself, wanting to have as close as possible to the source text. Whereas the free translation, as we've already discussed in class before, the free translation prioritizes the purpose of the target text or translated text. So let's take a look at this week's translation, and you can decide which is a better approach for this week's translation. This week, as we talk about business document translation, we will be revisiting Vinay and Darbane, who we talked about before, and the 7 translation techniques. When we talked about sign translation, we talked about modulation. We used modulation. With business document translation, we're looking at 2 other techniques, borrowing and calque. So let's take a look at those 2 techniques. First, borrowing. What is borrowing? It's a direct transfer of the source language term to the target language without any modification. Without any modification is a little bit difficult since English is written in Romaji, Romanized characters, and Japanese is written in kana or kanji. So without any modificationは少し難しいですね. That's a little bit difficult to say, but as close as possible. So here are some examples in English to Japanese translation of borrowing. The word app is apuri in Japanese. It's almost no change. Instead of saying the full word like application, these days we say app, and Japanese as well doesn't say application, it says apuri, right? So that's the correct translation of this borrowing technique. Another example is the word multimedia. And again, that's borrowed as closely as possible from the source language, multimedia, with as little change as possible. Obviously, we have to write Japanese in Japanese kana, in Japanese characters, but that's the only change. And the word data is another really good example of this borrowing technique. Okay, in all 3 of these cases, the meaning is the same. It's used exactly the same way in Japanese as it is in English. This is not wasei eigo. Okay, we have some examples from Japanese to English as well. You might be surprised to learn that words such as kaikaku, kaizen, and kanban are commonly used in business circles in the English language. Some of these words you might even be able to find in the English dictionary. Why don't you check? We can find lots of material written about kaikaku, kaizen, and kanban in English as it pertains to efficiency and productivity in the workplace. Now let's talk a little bit about calque. This is the third technique we're looking at from Vinay and Darbonnet. Here is the definition. A special kind of borrowing where the SL, source language, expression, or structure is transferred in a literal translation. Okay, let's take a look at another definition. This definition is from Judy Wakabayashi. She says it's a literal translation of the individual meaning units, the morphemes, making up a word or phrase, resulting in the creation of a new expression. Okay, so those are very similar definitions, but slightly different. So here are some examples of calc. So securities market is rendered exactly the same in Japanese as is solar cell, taiyo denshi, or independent variable, dokuritsu hensu. So all of these are sort of directly translating word for word, okay, word for word. And we have some examples going the opposite direction, Japanese to English as well. Words such as gyudon or mugicha or akimatsuri, beef bowl, barley tea, autumn festival. So each character is translated directly in order to make a new word. So it's quite similar to borrowing, but slightly different. Another thing we have to be really careful of when we are translating business documents is the translation of numbers. Invariably, when we're translating business documents, numbers will come up. And it's very, very important that we translate numbers accurately. If the number you translate is off by even one zero, you're going to be off by a great amount of money or a great number of things. So it's very, very important to get the translation of numbers right. Most people are fine with the translation of 1 to about 1 million. 100,000. People are usually pretty good at translating up to that point. However, after 1 million, people start getting a little bit shakier. So after 1 million comes 10 million and 100 million and 1 billion, 10 billion, 100 billion, etc. After billions come trillions, trillions. In this case, we have 3, 6, 9, 12 zeros. Okay, 1 trillion. So this number, 100 million, comes up quite a lot. So it's important to implant it in your mind that 100 million is the same as ichi oku. So that will bump your ability to translate quickly some of those numbers. Okay, in today's homework assignment, you'll notice that there are some graphs at the bottom of the assignment, the Kadaibun, that we're going to look at in a moment. And you do actually need to translate the graphs as well. So make sure you are translating this information. But pay close attention to the numbers we see here. It looks like $215, $745, $1,200, and $2,140. But yoku yoku mitara, at the bottom it says in millions, revenue in millions. So we have to make the change as to what that would be. We need to add some zeros, in other words. So how much is 1,200 millions? It's going to be $1,200,000,000. But we don't usually write a large number like this, $1,200,000,000. We would more commonly write a large number like this as $1.2 billion. Okay, $1.2 billion. All right, so the translation of numbers is a really key part of your translation for this week. And let me also oh yes, it's 12億ドル, right? Let me just switch the screen. So your homework for this week, you can see on the handout that I gave you, the week 6 homework. I'll be adding the QR code up here for this for this video, so you can read the QR code and watch the video. So please watch the lecture video via QR code. It says up here, and that's what you're watching right now. And then translate the kadaibun below. So this is your homework for this week. Everything in this box needs to be translated, including these graphs. Don't forget to translate these graphs as well as this text as well. The printed translation is due on May 25th, so please type your translation, print it out, and bring it to class. There are also some hints down here about some of the vocabulary that you'll find in here. There are some business senmon yogo, business yogo. So please make sure that you pay attention to the hints, the words that are used in this section. And please make sure that you also think about the text type. What is the text type that we're looking at here for a business document? This is quite a different type of text than we had last week. Last week we were still working on sign translation, but this time it's a slightly different type of text. So as you see at the top, it says, "Dear shareholders," kabunushi sama, right? So dear shareholders, and it's writing a kind of report about the year's business business results for the entire year. Of course, this is a very simple report, and we would normally see a much more detailed report than this. But this would be considered a traditional business document, but please make sure you think about, who is this for? Who is this translation for? Remember, we talked about different text types and target audiences, target readers. The target reader is going to be Japanese adult shareholders, right? So we want the language to be respectful to the shareholders. So the person or the people writing this text is the company, right, that the shareholders hold stock in. Okay. So I want you to think about your target reader, and I also want you to think about, what is the text type. The text type this week is an information report. It's a factual text. So your translation does not need to be super creative, but it does need to be accurate. So please make sure that you have the numbers translated accurately and the senmon yogo translated accurately. And it's also polite enough language to address the shareholders that this is written to. Okay, if you have any questions, please feel free to shoot me an email, and I will try to respond to your email as quickly as possible. Thank you very much.